But there's been a turn. Amazon's talking about it. Everybody's talking about it, is building your brand first, building a community, building that value. So that causes a problem in that model, because when you invest a lot of time and effort up front, a lot of the time you don't see profit for a couple of years. You might be putting money in, investing in all sorts of media, and then boom.
Lunch with Norm.
Hey everyone, it's Norm Farrar, aka the Beard Guy here, and welcome to another Lunch with Norm, the e-commerce and Amazon FBA podcast. Today we're going to be discussing what made our guest first brand successful. We're going to be talking about how our guest got into e-commerce, his backstory, and we're also going to be talking about can anyone get into e-commerce? Who makes that perfect e-commerce entrepreneur? And what's been some of the toughest challenges our guest has experienced? Okay, welcome to another Lunch with Norm, the e-commerce and Amazon FBA podcast. All right, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about our guests, or what made our guest's first brand so successful. He's one of my favorite guests. What can I say? He's one of my favorite guests. Anyways, he grew his international seven-figure brand and had a successful exit after about 3 years. I mean, just think about it. You put a little bit of time in and you exit with a seven-figure exit. That's not too bad. The business holy grail. Now he's doing it all over again. I've been privy to a bit of the information that he's been. Let me try this again. This is Monday, right? So I had a very long weekend doing all sorts of stuff. It was crazy. But anyways, let's try this all over again. I've been privy to his new product that he's been researching. He's going to be getting into this, but you're also going to be amazed at the time he's put in to make this next product a success. So he sold his first European brand through an aggregator in 2019. And he's got the loveliest hair in e-commerce. Anyways, my buddy Ben Leonard's going to be here in a second. So let's go to a sponsor first, and then we'll be right back. This episode of Lunch with Norm is sponsored by VAA Philippines. Looking for a high-quality virtual assistant for your business? With the rigorous screening, intensive Amazon and Walmart training, and ongoing professional development, get the peace of mind with skilled and motivated virtual assistants for a long-term working relationship. Hire through VAA today, and now let's get back to the show. Welcome, Ben.
Hello. It's good to be back.
It's Blooper Monday.
I love Blooper Mondays. They're the best kind of Mondays.
Man, did I mess that up?
I think Kelsey's right. I think it might be the fifth time I've come, and that means I get a plaque. I get a Lunch with Norm plaque to go in my office.
Yeah, we can arrange that. Yeah.
That's what we should do.
There we go. So excuse me. Hopefully I was far enough away. I didn't hit the mute button. And that's what happens for the fifth time guests. We cough in their ears. Not a plaque, but we just cough in their ears. So Ben, it's been a while. 30 seconds before I talked to Kelsey about the podcast, I said, I just sent Ben an email. Did he tell you about that?
Yeah, well, I got your email. You haven't seen my reply yet.
No, I have not.
I just replied saying, I'll speak to you in 30 minutes.
Oh my gosh. But you know what? This actually is how great my team is. Because we put together everything, right? So I literally will come on, take a look, and I don't know who the guests are. And then, I sit down in front of them just beforehand and we start talking. But that's how good Kelsey does a great job. Kelsey, don't listen. Kelsey does a great job, putting and producing the show. And then we have our outreach team that reaches out to all these guests. But that was just hilarious. Like literally 30 seconds before I messaged Kelsey about today and emailed you, said, you got to come back on the podcast.
It's brilliant. But you know what's great though is it is an advertisement for fantastic team building and systems and processes, which you need when you're running your podcast, but which the listeners all need in their e-commerce businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And the happy side effect is when they do that, they're suddenly so much easier to run. They scale bigger, faster, more profitably, and it's so much more enjoyable as well to work on your business too, because you're working on it and not in it.
Yeah, exactly. The old Michael Gerber E-Myth. It's all about that. But unfortunately, I was. This is too bad. I thought I'd finally get to see you after years, but you're not going to be going to SellerCon.
No, unfortunately, no transatlantic trips at the minute for me. I've had quite a lot of trips around Europe. I've just got back from Vietnam, where I was teaching on the Vietnam sourcing trip and meeting a manufacturer of mine. I went to Cape Town earlier in the year in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be going to India in October, but nothing your side of the pond in the diary at the minute, unfortunately.
Oh, that's too bad. So you're going to miss out on SellerCon and BDSS.
Yep. Maybe BDSS 2024 though. Maybe.
We'll see. That would be great to see you.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about you had, and I think anybody who's listened to the podcast before knows you and knows what you've done, the success you had in that first brand. Why don't we talk a little bit about backstory and how that came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So some people will know this first part because, people often ask me on shows, and I'm sure I've mentioned this on yours before, how did you get into e-commerce? But then it goes deeper, right? So I grew up in a commuter town in northeast Scotland, close to a small city called Aberdeen, which is like Scotland's and actually Europe's oil city. It's like the European version of Houston, only less sunny. And growing up there, it was almost inevitable I was going to end up in the oil and gas industry. So even though my passion is environmental conservation and nature, I ended up in that industry in that kind of a role. My job was to tell the oil guys they couldn't throw oil in the sea. But then in 2016, I got quite unwell with a heart problem, and I'm fine now. But for like maybe 6 or 9 months, I had to take a whole bunch of strong drugs. I was signed off work. I couldn't do my fitness hobbies. And I guess, frankly, I was miserable. And actually, not just the physical health, the heart thing, but I suppose it all kind of had a knock-on impact, and my mental health was really poor as well at that time. And I needed something to do. And I had an idea 4 years before that I'd done nothing about. I had an idea after training with some friends at CrossFit. I had this idea to start a fitness brand, and I did nothing about it. And it wasn't until that I got in this really bad place that that gave me the kick up the ass to get myself in gear and do something. And so I started researching, developing this fitness brand to sell products into gyms. And eventually I realized whilst I was developing it, that's not such a good idea. I should sell direct to my customers on the internet.
Okay. And now sorry, Ben, I thought the screen froze, but
I was just standing very still.
Yeah, just standing very, very still. But anyways, yes. So you ended up creating and doing a D2C business, selling directly to your customers. And then Amazon, how did you end up? Because even though back in the day, it was fairly easy to be successful on Amazon.
Yeah.
How did your brand stand out? And it wasn't like you just sold it. It was back a few years ago when aggregators were not chomping not buying up everything,
Yeah.
That was pre.
It was.
Yeah.
So to fast forward briefly to when I sold it in 2019, it was the first European brand to be sold to one of the, at that time, new aggregators. And Thrasio, who were the pioneers, really, they had only formed in late 2018. So it was really early days of that scene. But yeah, I did get a start on Amazon. When I was coming up with the brand and developing the first product and showing this to gyms and gym owners and professionals in the space, whilst doing that, I became aware of third-party selling on Amazon. But before that, I was one of those people that thought when you bought on Amazon, you were buying from Jeff. I didn't know third-party selling was a thing. And I also became aware that there was this platform called Shopify where me having no development or coding experience could build a pretty great e-commerce website to sell to my customers too. And so it became very obvious to me that I should do that. And I think an advantage that I had was because I was approaching it from a brand first perspective. Like, I'd made a decision to solve a problem, not very good fitness equipment, and it was too expensive for a particular group of people, fitness fans like me, and build a brand around it. And I thought I was going to sell into gyms. When I made the decision to then sell online, all I was doing was changing channel. So I wasn't going at it from a channel first perspective. I wasn't going at it like, oh, you can make money with this thing called Amazon FBA. Use a tool to find a product that's got not too many reviews, low competition and high demand, and then sell it. I wasn't doing that, but everybody else was. So when I started selling on Amazon, and I was just doing what came naturally to me, which was I want to build a great brand, I started to beat everybody pretty early on because turns out customers wanted to buy from a great brand too, and not just like generic widgets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's definitely something that, for new sellers that were coming on, all these micro brands, they're figuring out that there was a demand there, and there still is. And this is going to lead me to my next question, and that's about the entrepreneur. So there's certain people that absolutely should not be involved with Amazon or be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
They're just not cut out for it. What is that perfect person that should get involved with either Amazon or Shopify?
Sure. Well, first of all, in my opinion, they should have a passion for what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know people listening or watching will say, but Ben, I don't have that much of a passion for what I'm doing and it's working well. I do agree that if you have honed the skill set of selling physical products online, you can apply that to a niche you're not necessarily passionate about with some success. But I would say if you're starting out, and I would say you would have even more success if you're passionate about it. So I think like if you imagine like a pyramid, I think the base of the pyramid is the passion, because ultimately if you don't have interest in what you're going to do, you're not going to have the get up and go to go and make it fantastic, especially when you go through the tough times, and you will, because that's what we do as entrepreneurs. Then I think it's all about being resilient, because entrepreneurship is hard, right? You're going to go through really difficult times, whether it is a panic about cash flow, some intellectual property issue, whether you've gone out of stock, whether you're dealing with customer complaints, whatever it is, you're going to go through tough times, and you need to have resilience to get over that, and also not take things personally, and have the ability to be pragmatic about things. Take a step back, take a deep breath, and remember that it's, you are not your business. Your business is an entity, and you are yourself, and you are two different things. Adaptability. You got to be adaptable. You got to be able to pivot fast and make quick decisions which are driven by data and common sense first. I'm not saying having a good gut feeling about something doesn't have its place, but we don't want to let our gut rule our head. I think that's really important. And I think, I would just add into that mix, I mentioned their decisions. A lot of our decisions as entrepreneurs come down to risk. And we need to be willing as entrepreneurs to take risks. And if you can't live with a risk, you probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur. At the same time, I think there's become this sort of, it goes alongside, I think, this sort of toxic hustle culture thing that's become popular in recent years, of just like reckless risks, which have become some sort of celebrity entrepreneurs have glorified reckless risk taking, but it's okay for them after the fact. They might have taken a reckless risk and they got lucky and it paid off. But whilst I'm a fan of taking a calculated risk as an entrepreneur, I would say, especially when you're starting out, and especially if you're putting a ton of stuff on the line that you can't necessarily afford to lose, your risk taking as an entrepreneur needs to be calculated.
Yeah, there's so many different angles that you have to take a look at.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the single most that you have to look at would be cash flow. I think that's the number one kick you between the legs failure, because people just don't really take a look at their true cash flow or understanding the numbers of it, where they have enough to cover their inventory, but they never think about, okay, I've got to order it again.
Yep.
And I'm going to be out a few months.
Yep.
And I've got to market the product. Oh, and by the way, there's storage, advertising costs, Amazon fees. And if all of this isn't taken into consideration, then chances are, and I've bought a brand this way. I advised highly against getting into this niche because it was highly competitive, and that if it became a home run, this person wouldn't be able to handle it. And he took the risk and it became a home run. And it ended up, he came close to bankruptcy. Wow. So I bought him out and took on that brand. But that was exactly what happened. He looked at inventory. He didn't look at reality. So there's definitely a reality check. And then the other thing, and I think you've done a good job with this, is it was in this, I'm talking about even going back in the day, because you already had your sites on multi-channel. It wasn't just Amazon. And at that time, aggregators were just strictly looking at Amazon. They didn't care. I remember talking to aggregators back in 2018, 2019. They didn't care at all if you were on a different channel. Straight out. Yeah, they didn't care. You're not going to get an extra penny in an evaluation. You weren't going to get anything. And nowadays, that's a whole different story. That was major risk if you think about it.
You're right. And so one of the things, I have another hat with our brokerage firm, Ecom Brokers, and one of the things that we are seeing now from more and more of the aggregators and other buyers that we work with is, yes, some of them are still quite strictly, we really want the majority of your sales coming through Amazon because it's so much easier to manage. But more of them have got way better in their operational capability and way more sophisticated. And they are interested in multi-channel businesses, and they can now see the value in having an off-Amazon presence, whether that's selling on your own website or actually just treating your business like a legit consumer packaged goods brand and having everything that you would expect a brand like that to have, whether it's a social media presence, a YouTube channel, a podcast channel, email marketing, chatbot marketing, communicating with your customers even through WhatsApp and DMs on social. All of this stuff, which I've done with my first brand and I'm doing it again now, that is how you expect a brand to look and feel and behave. So what I often say to people that I work with is I would say, well, think about your favorite brands, right? Could be to do with like a hobby of yours, could be to do with your day job, or even like, good one is what's the favorite food products in your refrigerator, right? And what do those brands do to communicate with you and make you feel the way you do about them? What is it that makes you a fan, that makes you excited to place an order with them, that makes you, perhaps you have a problem that you need to solve and you avoid ordering from their competitor until they're back in stock because you want everything by that brand? You want to be doing all that off Amazon stuff to make your brand, make people feel like that about your brand. And what the aggregators failed to understand was that actually all that stuff makes the flywheel spin bigger and faster and does grow your Amazon sales. You just can't necessarily directly track it. But we know that it works it worked because so many brands that did do that, mine included, well, the new owner stopped doing it all. And guess what? The brand tanked. Because they weren't treating it with respect. They weren't getting, I call it the Amazon goldfish bowl, right? All they're trying to do is get more fish food for their fish in the goldfish bowl instead of thinking about, what if their fish was in a pond connected to rivers and streams and lakes and oceans, right? And actually thinking about the whole system and how it all adds up in like a big synergy.
Yeah. Have you, and what time? Oh, it is the bottom of the hour. Maybe I'll save this question until after we have another word from our sponsor. But we're at the bottom of the hour. If you're new to the podcast, we have this little thing that we do at the end of every show, and that's called the Wheel of Kelsey. And we're giving away a product, or we have a giveaway today. That's just awesome. So if you're interested, it's hashtag Wheel of Kelsey. Tag 2 people, you'll get a second entry. But we have a great giveaway from Ben, and we haven't even mentioned about your book. So I know that's part of it, but why don't you mention the book? Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah. The book. The book is called Quit Stalling and Build Your Brand. And it will be coming out in October. So we're a little while away yet. And it's the book that I wish existed when I first started. It's a roadmap. It's a set of timeless principles for somebody building a physical products e-commerce brand and needs guidance from someone who's been there and done it and still doing it. The kind of person that would enjoy this book would be somebody who is starting out would need this, but also somebody who might even be doing, mid 7 figures, but is stuck, hit a plateau, and needs to be reminded about the basic principles of business, but coming from the angle of e-commerce. What the book isn't, is it isn't going to go out of date in a few months. Every so often you get a great e-commerce book that pops up, but it's so specific that it will go out of date in like 6 months.
Right.
This is, I'm really proud of it, and I believe that it'll be useful for people in 5, 10, 15 years. There's books that I revisit now that were written in the 90s, and I read them like twice a year because the timeless principles don't change.
I love those books, by the way. And the books that you're talking about, that might be for that month or the next quarter. They're useful.
Oh, they are. Yeah.
But I like the ones that, and I'm an old guy. I know marketing principles. I like press releases. I like content. I like building blocks, the foundation of marketing. Again, I'm an old guy, and the people that a non-sexy approach, by the way, if I try to talk to people about press releases, they get bored and they don't do it, but I know it's a proven technique, strategy that works. And what you're talking about, I think, is along those lines, is that there are basic principles to marketing. And if you overlook them, or if you think squirrel, shiny object, you sometimes just take your mind off of it, and the answer is in front of you. You just need a kick in the butt to refocus and bring you back.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's not to say that the shiny short-term stuff isn't great. But you got to balance that out with the principles.
Right.
I spoke recently at a presentation in London, and I spoke about having a balanced meal. Your mom tells you to eat your vegetables. That's the principles. That's the solid brand identity, a real marketing strategy that resonates with your audience, right? And then I spoke about having burgers. After you've eaten your vegetables, you can have your burgers, which are your more nimble tactics, but always those tactics are based on timeless strategies. So even if the technology, the platforms, the channels, whatever it is, goes out of date, you can always apply the timeless principles again to whatever is new that comes out.
So you've been on 5 times. So Kelsey, I hope you can pull up the episodes or put them in the comment section so people can go back and listen. Every time Ben's been on, he's always dropped some really solid information that people can use with their business, not only their business, but their online business. And this is going to lead to the second part to this giveaway, and that you're providing a consult today as well. So whoever wins gets a free consult with Ben, and just listening to him talk, you'll know this guy knows his stuff. I've gone for him for advice. I know a lot of the people that are, higher end advanced sellers have gone to Ben. He knows his stuff. So at the end of the day, If you're interested in Ben's new book coming out in October and having a one-on-one with Ben, then it's hashtag Wheel of Kelsey, tag 2 people, and you will get a second entry. So if everything is going smooth right now, Kelsey, hit the button. This episode of Lunch with Norm is sponsored by SureGo Marketing. Ready to take your brand to the next level on TikTok and Instagram? SureGo Marketing specializes in helping entrepreneurs and coaches build profitable brands on TikTok and Instagram, and in less than 90 days. With SureGo Marketing, you could build your brand, create incredible video content, and increase leads without spending a single dime on ad spend. Visit suregomarketing.com today and elevate your brand. Now, let's get back to the show. You know, one thing I do have to say, this is the first time SureGo's been on. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, Ben, but they're a Toronto-based or a Ottawa-based company, and these guys did it right. They hit me up on LinkedIn, and it was a non-form email. Okay, so they pinged me, and I could actually see that they looked at the channel and said, "Hey, I can improve your channel. I don't want anything from you. I just want an hour-long conversation. And if you liked it, then if you could pass it along." And I said, "Okay, what's the catch?" And so I had it was 45 minutes to an hour. This guy was dropping nugget after nugget after nugget. I hate the word nugget, nugget after nugget after nugget. And I said, "Okay." So at the end, I said, what's the catch? He goes, "There's no catch." He says, "I told you that all I wanted was you to show me, for me to analyze what you're doing. I would give you some suggestions. If you liked what I said, then pass it along." I said, "That's awesome. Well, not only that, I do want to retain you." And so the guy has made so many improvements, him and his partner, and it's all TikTok based, right? And Kelsey and I, like, we've had to get to understand TikTok. But these guys, holy crap, they know their stuff. And I'm not just saying that because they came on. I actually talked about this way before they became a sponsor. But anyways, check them out.
I will. And actually, you know what? After the show, I'm going to ask you for an intro, because that sounds like something that I could really use for one of my brands.
Yeah, and they're young guys. They're just. It's not about the money. You know those types of people, that they'll share with you. It's not about the money, and they want to grow their brand, and they did a great job with it. So anyways, I don't know, they're probably not listening, but if you are listening, 2 thumbs up to you guys.
Nice.
And let me see, I had another comment on aggregators, and I like, you're involved with in a group, and I don't know if you want to let people know who you're working with. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Let everybody know.
Hang on. What are we talking about?
You're the aggregator that you work with.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. So I'm an advisor. I'm a brand ambassador, if you like, and across the pond in Europe for Carbon 6, who are an aggregator of e-commerce, predominantly e-commerce software companies. All
right. Very good. So aggregators in the past, I'm talking about for brands, we just talked about that model, and they were after a specific model.
Yep.
And that was, profit first, basically. Yep. And whether they could grow it or not. But there's been a turn. Amazon's talking about it. Everybody's talking about it, is building your brand first, building a community, building that value. So that causes a problem in that model, because when you invest a lot of time and effort up front, a lot of the time you don't see profit for a couple of years. You might be putting money in, investing in all sorts of media, and then boom. Dr. Squatch, I think, is a really great example of that. There's a ton of companies like that. I'm working with a fairly large brand right now that for 3 years lost money. They just lost money. But now it's their golden years, and all their efforts went into it. But if an aggregator came in year 1, year 3, they would have said, They wouldn't even have said, they would have just turned and ran. Have you seen a switch where aggregators are now looking at the two different business models? One, building your brand community, and looking at it going, wow, this could be really profitable next year, based on the research that they do and the due diligence that they do. Have you seen a switch at all?
Yes, we have, but we've also seen the answer basically yes and no. Some are getting it right, and some
Yeah.
are still doing it the old way, and they're determined to do it the old way. And the old way will work with some caveats. So the old way was, we're going to acquire cash flow, we're going to acquire EBITDA relatively cheaply, roll it up, it becomes worth more than the sum of its parts. So immediately we've made money because we bought it for 3x, and now it's sitting in our portfolio at 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or more x, and we're going to benefit from economies of scale and efficiencies and improve our SDE that way. So then when we either sell this on or go public, and none of the aggregators have gone public yet, by the way, we're going to make bank. That will work provided you improve your operational capability, and many of them have. Some of those larger early aggregators, the likes of Thrasio, for instance, got rid of virtually their entire M&A teams and bought nothing for probably over a year, and had a real period of self-reflection to understand what went wrong for them. And now they're doing better, but they're still not perfect, because they are still really just financial guys who decided to roll up a bunch of e-commerce businesses. I'm pleased to say there are newer, better aggregators who are e-commerce people who've decided to roll up a bunch of e-commerce businesses.
Yeah, I've started to see that.
Yeah, especially in Europe, by the way. More of that in Europe, and Latin America is quite interesting too. And these organizations are way better on the operational side, and they understand the importance of everything that you need to have as a legit brand. And some of them have really interesting environmental credentials, actually, just as a side note. Like, they're really taking the whole building real organizations that actually do things that people value quite seriously. So that's really important. And they are playing a longer term game. Like, whereas before it was all like, oh, we're going to purely look at the trailing 12 months EBITDA, and that's what your business is worth. A lot of it now is, well, okay, we recognize that this business hasn't necessarily been profitable or particularly profitable after year 1 or year 2, but we can see where this is going. The talent is here, and they're actually retaining the talent. So slight shift into Carbon 6, because obviously that's software, but they're not purely aggregating. They're not purely aggregating e-commerce software platforms and keeping them all separate. They're now bringing them all into one platform, because they recognize that consumers want everything in one place. There's an ability to build a community there, and they're retaining the talent. So the founders of all those organizations that made them good in the first place are still there, which is exactly what the first round of physical products aggregators got wrong. They would take all the nimble stuff, all the vegetables and burgers, for instance, that I gave them with my first brand, and forgot all about it. And then they scratch their heads and wonder why the wheels fall off these brands. Because everything that made it what it was in the first place, they stopped doing.
I want to change the subject now. And sure, you've got this product that I'm not going to say anything about it, but it's quite awesome. And it's taken you forever to launch. But I want to talk about that. You've had a great success in that one, in your first product. Now you're developing this second product. Why is it taking you so long to launch?
Sure. So to give people a bit of context, I'm developing a brand in the parent and baby space. The first product is very technical, and you cannot get it wrong. If you get it wrong, you're done. Like, you're going to have to start again, probably even with a different brand name, because your reputation will be just awful.
Mm-hmm.
So why is it taking so long? We're on the 5th prototype. We're about to make the 6th, and we hope to launch on Kickstarter later this year.
Mm-hmm.
I started developing this brand about 2.5 years ago now. It's taken so long because of a variety of reasons. One, design. It took a long time to design this product. We're talking about highly technical design that's cost me close to $70,000 to do so far. And And then, so you do the design, then you make the first prototype, which takes time. You have to get that prototype from the other side of the world. You have to test it with the right qualified experts who are going to give you the right feedback to understand what's good and bad about it. You have to then send that prototype and that feedback back to your designer to then come up with a new design to then manufacture again. So the prototyping alone is a very lengthy process. Then you have the fact that our first manufacturing partner had to pull out. So they made our first 3 prototypes. And then, so they're in Vietnam, by the way, not China, which is another interesting topic we can talk about. Vietnam was doing very well through COVID, but then the Omicron variant hit and a lot of factories closed. And many factories had to say, you know what, we can't support startups anymore. We've got a duty to stick by our existing clients, many of whom were very large organizations. These guys did the right thing by us. They finished our 3rd prototype and helped us find a new manufacturing partner. Turns out they're probably even better. So overall, it's just taken an awfully long time, right? I'm not just working with my designer, but I'm consulting with expert consultants in this industry who really deeply understand not only the product, but the consumer. Because if you, like I said, if you get this wrong in this particular niche, the community of consumers who will use it will go nuts. So you have to get this right. We're going to the level of I'm actually going to become a qualified expert in this sub niche so that A, I deeply understand the product even more, and B, I can actually jump on calls and teach customers how to use the product properly, which will form great content. So we're getting there. We're going to run a Kickstarter later this year, and we're going to go completely open on it. We're going to show everyone what we're doing, which I believe, it's just my personal opinion, but I believe if you're positioning yourself as a thought leader in the e-commerce space or brand building space, you should be open about what you're doing, which is why I talk openly about my first brand. And we're doing it for 2 reasons. A, it's so that I can teach people e-commerce stuff, because even if it fails, that's interesting. That's a lesson, right? That's something we can all learn from. But also, we're going to use the content to bring in customers, like people who have no interest in e-commerce. They're going to love seeing content about me and my business partner, Mark, developing this product, how we've gone through all the prototypes, footage I filmed on my phone from inside my factory. They're going to love seeing us setting the product on fire during the safety testing, all that kind of stuff. The big boys aren't doing that. I call it speedboat marketing. Little guys like us, we're nimble. We can turn around like a little speedboat, but the big guys are huge. They're on a tanker or a cruise ship. It takes them half a day to turn around. They can't do this. So that was a bit of a ramble, but yeah, that's a bit about that brand.
All right, very good. I know that we have a hard cutoff at 1. So, Kels, do we have any questions that we should get to first, or can we still continue?
We have a couple comments, I would say, but whatever you're feeling, I think.
Yeah, why don't we answer the questions now, and then if we've got some time, I'll ask Ben a few more.
Okay, so from AMZ Elite, Thomas saying, Norm, I work at Aggregator now. Investors are looking for both DTC, Amazon, and one company. DTC has become extremely important. Any thoughts?
I think that's a true comment. Some aggregators still are very much, they want predominantly Amazon. It's just so much easier to manage their portfolio when everything's on one platform. I think that is short-sighted and a bit short-termist. To be honest, I think you need to see the benefit of an entire brand approach. So that could be a mix of being D2C, Amazon, Walmart, even platforms like Tundra and Farrar. We've seen businesses that have been selling on Costco's website, which is a great move, because then if you do well on their website and they pick you up and put you in their stores, first statewide, then nationally, then internationally, that can really blow you up. So an omni-channel approach is the way to do it.
Touching on that, and I haven't heard you say this yet, but I've been focusing quite a bit on retail.
Yeah.
And we've been, I'm working on a course right now, a very in-depth course with 2 other people on just retail and what the online community is missing out on. You just talked about Costco. You get one major PO from Costco. We just, I think I mentioned this the other day. I'm not sure if it was Nordstrom. I think it was Nordstrom. I got on, woke up in the morning, and there was a $700,000 PO. Not a bad day.
Not a bad day.
But these are the things that you can do with retail, but it's not sexy.
Yeah,
Old
but I mean,
school.
it is sexy. Well, it is to me.
Well, that
because-
when you get a PO like that,
Yeah.
it's sexy.
Yeah, but not just that. It's like that's not just worth 700,000. That's worth all the people that's going to bring into your brand
Yep.
outside of e-commerce, who suddenly, when they've bought. I talk about it with people like this all the time. They've bought widget A from you, and if you do the right things in treating them, giving them a real experience on the back end of that sale, they're going to go get widget B from you. They might buy it on your own website. They might buy it on Amazon. They might buy it on Walmart. Doesn't matter. But if you don't do that and give them that experience, or you're not showing up in retail so that they, your brand's top of mind, they're just going to go search for widget B, and they might buy yours or they might buy a competitor's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll be talking a lot more about retail, and
Love that.
It's just something that a lot of people have forgotten about. But okay, next.
All right. Next one is a comment from Marcia. Marcia says, being a lifelong entrepreneur has brought me great joy, fantastic friends, financial freedom, and a few headaches along the way. It has been the best way to live my life.
And coming from Marcia, she knows what she's talking about.
Love that.
All right. And then we have a question from Chuck. What should be the biggest reason to hold back from jumping into retail? Why shouldn't the brand?
I don't know if you want to take this one, Ben. I can take it.
I can briefly say something here, and then you're building the retail course, which, by the way, sign me up. So for my, I have several brands. One that's selling now. We're not going to go into retail for that brand, because right now, the return on effort for that is probably not sufficient, and it's not the type of brand that at this point in time, until we are more established and have built our tribe online, will make sense for retail. However, this brand that I was just speaking about with Norm, the baby parent brand, immediately we're going to retail. We're going to get in front of the right buyers, because it's a highly technical product with a lot of IP around it, and we can demonstrate that it's got a lot of it's been tested and endorsed by top experts in the space. And it's like there's a demand for it, but it's not exactly like something they're already selling. We believe that we can pitch this to them and that they will see the benefit in having this in their stores. So retail is right for some brands and not right for others. What do you think, Norm?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And even though you're ready for retail, there's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration. First, you fit the brand's personality. Like Walmart, for example. No new brand can just walk into Walmart and get in there. They want, at least on the marketplace, they want experienced sellers. So they're going to go and research you. But on the other hand, you have to have a catalog. You have to have retail packaging. Costco packaging versus Walmart packaging might be completely different. The way that you communicate, the terminology that you're talking to the retailer with, it has to be bang on, because if you come off like you don't know what you're doing, that could turn off the buyer. But some of the other things you have to take into consideration, we talked about it, first thing we said, cash flow. So there are different types of retailers out there. In my little town where there's more cows than people, I've got an independent pet store. I've got all sorts of little independent stores out here, sporting goods store. Well, I can call that company up and maybe they're interested. They're always looking for something different, and they'll buy a case or two, whatever your minimum quantity is, and they're going to put it on a credit card. Now, if you're working with other companies, you'll have to see what those terms are. And don't be afraid to negotiate. These are professional buyers that know exactly what they want. And if it's something that has piqued their attention, you do have the ability that you can negotiate with them. So a lot of these retailers are willing to work with you, especially during the first phase. If they say they're putting in a test PO, it's for thousands of units, going to wipe you out, you just go back to them and let them know that this is the first order, this is the first PO. You're working on Amazon right now. It's going to take you it might take you 6 weeks to get it in stock or retail ready. They'll work with you on that. I've seen a lot of people get nervous because they get a test PO, and all of a sudden, how do I fulfill it? It's going to wipe out all my Amazon, and then my Amazon listings are going to go down. Well, don't do that. Just just talk to them. But there's a lot of different reasons why you should be going into and how to work with a buyer. But the main thing you should consider, Chuck, is to make sure that you have the cash flow ready, and you should be, you'll know up front from that buyer. Oh, and one last thing, this isn't a game of 48-hour communication. If you're not on within 24 hours, that buyer is not going to chase you down and, just, oh, I've got to deal with you. That's, the entrepreneurial ego.
Yeah.
24 hours later, they're on to 10 other companies. So just make sure that you're in their face. And if you fail, and this happens with Walmart, for example, if you fail, if you're not a seasoned seller, don't forget to reapply. Get back in their face once you meet whatever criteria. And don't forget to ask them, why didn't they accept you if you do get a rejection? So you can help build, whatever that is. Anyways, that's sort of a long-winded answer, but cash flow.
All right. And from Cool Hand 99, on omnichannel, how much success on a single channel should we shoot for before spending time and energy on another channel?
I don't think it's difficult to define how much success, right? Because success and the definition of success varies from brand to brand. I think before you get onto another channel, you have to ask a few questions. First, does that channel make sense for my brand and my audience? Is there going to be a sufficient demand for my product on that channel? Do my customers even shop on that channel, or many of them? And then you have to ask yourself, what is the cost to me of going on that channel in terms of do you have the cash flow to support it, for instance, right? And are you going to be able to actually manage getting onto that channel? And is it going to cause a problem for your bread and butter? I love expanding onto other channels, but you have to wait until you have the cash flow to support it. Your existing channels are ticking over like a well-oiled machine and everything's working smoothly, so that getting onto this other channel, you're not suddenly going to find, oh no, I'm out of stock on my original channel and I can't actually afford to buy new inventory until I've sold through all this other stuff that I've thrown on this other channel that's not selling because there's not enough demand there yet. So think about those things first.
All right.
Okay, and our last one, I might need some more clarification on this from Rad, but there are two schools of thought. One says to sell your product, create a market, and then try to promote your brand, which is correct.
I'm a brand guy.
Oh,
So
I see what he's saying. I agree, Norm. Brand all the way.
Yeah, it used to be. If you were to ask us, and I think you'd agree with this, Ben, but if you were to ask us in 2016, that then you could go and sell a Me Too product on Amazon with no packaging and no brand, and you would get sales. Nowadays, Amazon actually states they want to build a brand community. They lost big brands because they said that Amazon didn't support their community. So now they're doing everything possible between influencers and posts and Inspire and all of these things that are ultimately going to build your brand community. And if you're not doing that, I would definitely start. And you can start even now with posts.
Absolutely.
Post is the way. And was it you? No, it was Sumner Hobart that came up with the posts and just showed the engagement 1 year after the posts. And he said that he posted all these posts, Amazon posts I'm talking about, and he forgot about them. And he said, oh, the engagement didn't, and I think he didn't want to come out and say that I was full of it. But he was saying he wasn't agreeing. Right. And anyways, a year later, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it does make a difference. Here's the thing. People want an immediate return.
Yeah.
They want, they want an immediate return, and perhaps people are lazy. What makes a difference is the compounding effect of consistency and showing up, whether that's posting or DMing your customers on Instagram or creating helpful, compelling, engaging, useful, free content that's going to make them know, like, and trust your brand. When you show up and do that, you will crush your competitors who are stuck in the Amazon goldfish bowl, constantly just chasing another sale. So, Rad, if you could, like Norm was saying, like back in 2016, you could just sell like stuff. But imagine you started in 2016 and you build a brand then. Then you're going to absolutely destroy everyone, which is exactly what I did. Because remember, I came to it from a brand first point of view, not because I'm trying to say, oh, look at me, I'm so clever, I thought about this, but because I never thought about selling on Amazon when I started developing my brand. I got to Amazon after I was already developing my first product. So it just seemed natural to me. I don't know, I'm building this brand, so, and Amazon's just a place that I'm selling. Okay. It's all about brand.
Very good. All right. So I know it's right up at the top of the hour. Do you have time to stay on for another minute?
I do. Let's rock and roll.
Kelsey, sponsor, and then over to the wheel. This episode of Lunch with Norm is sponsored by Rebate. Attention sellers and brand owners, want to reach more shoppers and boost sales? Rebate's platform connects sellers with shoppers seeking great deals on new products. They make it easy to offer promotions, handle rebates, and ensure seamless redemptions. With countless reviews from satisfied customers, Rebate is the go-to solution to increase your sales. Visit rebate.com today and start reaching more shoppers. Now let's get back to the show. Okay, so let's get over to the Wheel of Kelsey.
It's time for the Wheel of Kelsey.
All right. We had a great turnout today.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, everyone who entered. We do this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the podcast. So make sure you come back to win again or have another chance to win on the wheel. So I'm going to shuffle these up and let's see who today's winner is. If you are the winner, please email me, kate@lunchwithnorm.com. And it looks like
Dennis
is the winner.
Fantastic.
Nice one,
Congrats, Dennis.
All right.
So,
congratulations.
Yeah, if you guys connect me with Dennis, then Dennis, I'm gonna send you my book as soon as it's ready, and we'll jump on a call.
That's great. So all you need to do is send the information, Dennis, over to k@lunchwithnorm.com. Dennis, I think you're a first-time winner, so congrats on that. Ben, I'm waiting for the sixth time.
Yeah, well, we have to do it now so that we can unveil live on the show my new plaque on my office wall. And also so we can talk about the book in October.
yeah, the plaque. And believe me, it'll be something that's a printed certificate that I'll send over to you as a plaque.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we'll do.
All right, Ben, thanks a lot. Want more great information? Don't forget to subscribe by clicking here. Also, if you want to check out our latest podcasts, click over here.
Lunch with